This is OwlUp, where learning happens in minutes, not hours. For a deeper journey, explore all our courses at owlup.co. Now, let's dive in. Welcome back to episode 2 of Retirement Planning in Your 40s. It's not too late, where we're tackling the big question that keeps everyone up at night. Exactly how much money do you actually need to retire comfortably? Today, we're going to crunch some numbers and figure out a realistic savings target that won't make you want to hide under your desk. Let's get into it. Right now in the US, a typical person reaching their mid-60s can expect to live almost 2 more decades. Here's the twist. Most households in their late 50s have only a modest nest egg. So how do you turn not quite enough into confidently covered for all those extra years? Fidelity says a typical worker on track might aim for roughly 10 times their final salary by their late 60s. Yet many households arrive at their mid-50s with savings that look more like a starter fund than a finish line. The gap between those two numbers isn't a verdict, it's a planning problem. In this episode, we'll shift from vague targets to a concrete question. What does my retirement actually cost per year? Then we'll stretch that number across decades, adjust it for rising prices, and test it against realistic income streams and portfolio withdrawals, not just wishful thinking. Modern tools can now run thousands of retirement what-ifs behind the scenes, using your data instead of generic rules. Think of it like refining a recipe. Small, early adjustments can dramatically change the final result, long before you take the first bite. Now we'll zoom in from the big picture to the dials you can actually turn. Instead of asking, "Do I have enough?" we'll ask, "Enough for what exact lifestyle and how long?" That means listing real-world costs, where you'll live, how often you'll travel, whether you'll still help adult children, and what level of healthcare comfort you want. Basic, cushy, or concierge. Then we'll line those choices up against likely resources, Social Security timing, employer pensions, part-time work, and your portfolio, so your numbers reflect your life, not a generic average. Next comes the part most people skip, turning fuzzy hopes into a working, testable number. Start by sorting future spending into 3 buckets: must-haves, want-to-haves, and could-live-withouts. Must-haves are housing, food, utilities, transportation, baseline healthcare, and insurance. Want-to-haves might be travel, hobbies, gifts, and upgrades to your home or car. Could-live-withouts are things you'd happily trim if markets went south for a few years. Now attach today's dollar amounts to each bucket. Use your current spending as a starting point, but adjust for changes. Maybe the mortgage is gone, commuting shrinks, but travel and medical costs rise. The goal isn't perfection, it's a realistic first draft. Next, build a simple timeline. Break retirement into phases instead of assuming one flat number forever. Go-go years, roughly 60s to early 70s, higher travel, activities, home projects. Slow-go years, mid-70s to mid-80s, less travel, similar housing, rising healthcare. No-go years, late 80s plus, minimal travel, potentially higher care or assisted living. Estimate different annual totals for each phase. That alone makes your plan far more accurate than a single average year guess. Then, map in predictable inflows by year. Social Security at whatever age you're likely to claim, any pensions, and possible part-time work. This turns your plan into a series of annual gaps, spending minus guaranteed income. Those gaps are what your portfolio needs to cover. Here's where modern tools earn their keep. Instead of assuming a fixed return and a single, safe withdrawal rate, they'll test thousands of combinations of market paths, inflation patterns, and lifespans. The output isn't a magic answer, it's a probability range. For example, with this spending pattern, your plan succeeds in 82% of simulated lifetimes. Think of the process like designing a building's load-bearing structure. You're not trying to predict the exact weight on every beam, but to make sure the frame holds under plausible stress. If the success rate looks thin, you don't panic. You revisit levers you can actually move, delaying retirement a bit, trimming the want-to-haves in early years, shifting when you claim benefits, or modestly increasing savings now. Think of each spending bucket like a separate project account in your life's budget. Your must-have account might be backed almost entirely by predictable sources, benefits, any pension, maybe a small annuity, so those essentials stay funded even in rough markets. Your want-to-have account can lean more on your invested portfolio, accepting some volatility in exchange for flexibility. If simulations show a tougher patch, that's the account you dial down first. The could live without list becomes your built-in emergency brake, a pre-agreed menu of cuts so you're not making panic decisions later. You can also layer in specific goals as mini projects, a 5-year grandkids travel fund, a 10-year home upgrade reserve, or a future care cushion starting at a certain age. Each one gets its own timeline, target amount, and funding source. The more you tag dollars to purposes and dates, the easier it is to see which levers, timing, amount, or priority, you're actually comfortable moving when the numbers push back. Soon, your estimates won't live in a static spreadsheet. They'll flex like a GPS that reroutes every time traffic shifts. Real-time spending feeds can flag when lifestyle creep quietly widens the gap, while health data nudges your horizon longer or shorter. Instead of setting one safe draw, your plan may adjust monthly, like a thermostat keeping a house comfortable as weather swings. The open question: how much control will you keep as tools grow smarter and more automatic about your future? As tools learn from your patterns, they might start nudging you the way a savvy co-pilot suggests smoother routes mid-flight. You could test trade-offs instantly, extra trip now versus higher cushion later, claiming benefits earlier versus more flexibility down the road. The experiment becomes ongoing. Adjust one dial, watch the whole dashboard respond in real time. Before next week, ask yourself, 1. If I retired at the age I'm actually hoping for, how much do I realistically want to spend each year in today's dollars on housing, food, travel, healthcare, and fun? And where am I guessing instead of using real numbers from my current budget? 2. Given my current savings rate, investment mix, and expected Social Security or pension, what's the gap between what I'm on track for and the number I'd need to support that lifestyle? Could I quickly test this with an online retirement calculator today? 3. If the market returned 2 to 3% less than I'm assuming, or if I lived 5 to 10 years longer than I expect, how would that change my target nest egg, and which lever would I be most willing to adjust first? Saving more now, retiring later, or spending less in retirement? This was OwlUp, your daily step forward. To keep learning with structured courses and more insights, go to owlup.co. Until tomorrow.